Andrew, great to see you. I'm really, really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a little bit funny for both of us to be interviewing each other, but I certainly am just looking forward to getting to know you.
Yeah, same. Maybe we'll just, go for the conversation angle and less Barbara Walters style.
Oh my God! The problem is that for my entire life, I have attached my entire sort of social being to that of Barbara Walters. Anytime I'm at a party, anytime I'm in a new place
Seriously?
with new friends, it's just kind of what I do. It's either that or total wallflower. I don't
That's
really.
more me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
We
two
could just sit here in
wallflowers
silence for an
interviewing
hour.
each other, even better.
Perfect.
Okay,
Even better.
let's start with one of Kelvin's beautiful questions.
Sure.
What are your identities as an artist?
I am a Kansas City born tenor who lives in New York City now. Ideally, I am a person who sings, and I try to not be like, I am a singer, and I do this kind of
Yeah.
work. But yeah, I'm a tenor, live in New York City, and that's my jam. What about you,
Why?
Dashon?
What?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Why do? Thank you. Why do you sort of think of the identity a little bit, kind of outside of like this hurrah? I'm a a Helden tenor or whatever.
Next lifetime.
Yeah.
I just find it to be a little bit limiting for my own self, and I've been really, maybe this will come up later as we speak, but I've been trying to, especially during the pandemic when we've kind of been forced to, look at ourselves without our work. Like, who are we without that label of I'm a singer? I don't think it's not the most important part of my life. It's something that I totally love doing and I'm happy to be doing, but yeah, I guess just for my own mind, I'm trying to not attach myself too much to like that kind of label.
Beautiful. Absolutely. I couldn't agree anymore. I myself tried to, kind of go the model of a story that I think I read in a Leonard Bernstein biography once, which I just thought at the time was so cool. And now, I mean, it is cool, but, it's a little less cool now that I'm kind of a professional musician in this way. But, he was a conductor that I completely idolized. And at some point in the biography, they said that he just wrote musician as his occupation in his passport or something like that. And at the time I thought, wow, I mean, like, here's this world famous traveling conductor, and he sort of humbles himself, to just say, I'm just a musician in this way. And so even though that's so irrelevant, I think to kind of the realities of whatever non sort of biographical information is out there. I think yeah, very much I consider myself a musician above all, as an artist, and a singer, because I primarily love to use my voice, and as a tinkerer, I love to kind of compose little melodies and soundscapes, especially using kind of found sounds and electronic sounds, and yeah. Those are, I think, my chief three expressions as an artist.
Tinkerer. I love it. If only that were actually in our bios for programs.
Listen, it can be. I
It
gotta
can be,
tell
it's
you,
true.
we have got to reclaim bios after all of this is done. Above
I
all,
agree.
we've just got to say, no more lists, no
Yeah.
more press quotes. Just
Yeah.
who are you?
Who are you? I love that. I didn't know you were a tinkerer with composing. That's so interesting. Do you find, has this been like a long time interest of yours?
Yeah, I've loved
Yeah.
using GarageBand since I got my first Mac. Maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. I don't even know exactly when, but yeah, just kind of having another outlet to sort of express what I want to hear. That's always what it was, you know.
Sure.
And I'm not really kind of a public facing, sort of writer of music in this way. I chiefly, just kind of am sort of curious about about things that I want to hear. And I definitely used my Casio keyboard that my mom gave me when I was a kid to write lots of music when I was a kid. Sadly, I don't really remember much of it except for one melody, which I sadly learned was kind of a ripoff of Total Recall, of this one advertisement, this random advertisement in Total Recall. It unfortunately, is, I'm like, oh, that's where that's from. Okay, that's nice anyway. But I expanded on it and, kind of padded it out a little bit. And
Oh, that's great. Made it.
Do you write any music at all or anything?
No, no. I just never really felt compelled to. And when I have tried, maybe it was just my own like limitations or self-doubt, but it never really went very well. So I'm happy to perform and learn and promote everyone else's music.
I know that's really really amazing, and that's kind of one of the things that I sort of wish that I had more of in this life. Just kind of sort of focus and kind of the ability to just sort of sit down and say, this is something that I do love, and I do want to work really really hard to get to a beautiful place with it. I'm a little bit scatterbrained in my approach. What was your kind of starting point in terms of this is what I love in life, and this is kind of the path that I want to walk on?
Yeah, I grew up, or my family is full of musicians. Many are educators at the university level, a couple private teachers, performers, choir directors from their church choir. Music was always around me. And so I never really felt like I guess I ended up choosing it at some point later, maybe like in late high school, but it was just always kind of a given in my world. So I think it was maybe mid-high school, I checked out a bunch of CDs from the public library of like classical singers, and it was really my first exposure to kind of opera singing in a very traditional sense. And that was so exciting for me to kind of discover what the voice is capable of. I'd really only known it from choir and, theater and stuff, but never like that kind of unamplified, really fully resonant experience. So that was kind of the point where I was like, oh, what is this? I'd like to kind of, tinker with that. But before then, it was just so part of my fabric. I would go to church and sit in between my grandparents who would sing the hymns, good old Lutheran hymns in harmony, and we would always sing at our family celebrations and gatherings, and it was just something that we all did. It was never like, what is this music thing? It was always like, oh, I know, I was kind of born in this world.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful, I think, gift to have had it from youth. I did not, but I every time I hear about it, it's like this beautiful sort of other universe that exists within my friends who were really really lucky and had so many years as a child. What would you say, kind of, if there is any, what's the sort of chiefly different way that you think of music from when you were a kid and this kind of wide-eyed sort of sponge, in this way, to now, kind of how do you compare those two thought processes?
It's so different, I think, in my mind. I always think about like, the more can really be a slippery slope sometimes, and to go back to that beginner's mind, which is a huge topic, but to try to kind of rediscover that kind of ignorance in a way of just like, I love this, I don't really know what this is, but it's something that totally feeds me. I think I've really kind of been on a journey with that to having a natural talent, whatever that even means.
Yeah, yeah.
And to being told, like, when I was younger and like in early college, like, it's just like, oh, you're so talented, and I was like, that's great, okay, I guess it's working, so I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, which I had no clue what I was doing. And then I became more curious about like actually figuring out technique and like wondering, like, how do we put things together vocally, and I think that then like kind of threw me in the opposite way of like in my head a lot about how to sing. And so I'm always trying to balance this, practice time, which is very focused and very analytical usually, versus performance time, which is when I do feel like more of that youthful kind of just natural organic way of making music comes out in me, and to not get into the corners of either of those two rigidly, because I think I feel like I need both.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do know that I am a great information seeker, and I'm always curious to learn and explore and like read all the singer books and watch all the master classes, and it's I have to really be careful that I don't let myself go down that rabbit hole too far sometimes, because it can really kind of throw you off of what to be true,
Absolutely.
to kind of that original seed of what it means, how music making feels inside.
Who were the kind of first people that sort of encouraged this curiosity to sort of kind of a really high professional level? Like, I'm sure your family, growing up, it was kind of a just something that was there, but there must have been a point at which someone said, hey, this is kind of the way, and these are the books, or these are all sorts of things like that. Were there people specifically that sort of really sort of watered that seed in this way?
That's a great question. I had thought about who my influences were, but to kind of take it to this next level of who really kind of awakened that aspect of things. Gosh, I'm not entirely sure. I've always been a very like sleuth-oriented person, and it might have just been the experience of, I'm thinking of like being in college and being around, we had a very prominent doctoral and master's program, and I was always friends with the older kids.
Yeah.
Who I've always been like the younger kid around all the older kids, and I think it's that. I think it's being around people who were already in that headspace and thinking like, well, what is that? Like, what are they talking about? What are these words they're throwing out, or these references, or these books I see on my teacher's shelves? What are these things? I think that's maybe where less of like a specific person, but maybe more of a group or an experience that kind of led me a little deeper. Or like, I did a young artist program when I was in college, and that was my first time being around people who were really opera oriented, and they were, general directors who were on staff there, and I think that also, those experiences just kind of wake you up in a way that, for me, maybe led me to being a little more specific and intentional about studying.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems, from just your what I have known of you, which is just always youthful energy and this freshness and vigor, with which you collaborate in this way. It really does seem so innate, which is such a beautiful quality. Do tell me about
Sure.
kind of how you try to kind of pass on that innateness. What is your sort of your kind of worldview of responsibility, if any? Maybe there's not, but what is your responsibility to kind of help others find this path that you have found in this way?
It's a little bit tricky, because I do feel like there is something that's very. I'd like to circle back a little bit after this, kind of to your experience of not growing up in a really musical household, because again, this is something that's very kind of ingrained in me, and so to have to kind of decipher what was kind of always there has been a big learning experience. And then once I have kind of figured out how how you phrase something that sometimes is a very natural instinct. What does that actually mean to take a phrase and do XYZ with it, that maybe just kind of comes out on its own sometimes. But as far as kind of sharing that, with my students, I only have a few private voice students, but I've taught, a number over the years and have done a couple master classes, and I always just try to encourage, of course, curiosity and experimentation, but also not being dogmatic about anything, and to really let them come up with, or to give them the space to bring their own ideas to it. And then, of course, we all have rules that we can follow and bring up, but I try to be as open in those moments, and not to, here's how it's done, or here's how I know. Of course, I'll share my experience, but I just think that's such a way that I don't really enjoy learning myself, and I would rather have some more individual experiences inform how we interpret or do simple things like articulate or phrase.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's, maybe I didn't answer that super
No,
clearly,
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it really does, because there is this I think this innate sense that if this is for you, then then you will know that, you will cherish that, and this is how you sort of water that natural kind of enjoyment of it. And I very much have not the opposite experience, but because I didn't excuse me.
Good morning.
Because I didn't, yeah, I know, it's insane. Because I didn't kind of have this growing up in life, I really did have to kind of rely on other people in a way. And it was kind of a balance in this way. I'm very, very curious, but probably unlike you, I'm sure you're a straight A student. I was absolutely not a straight A student.
Okay.
And I loved. Wait, are you a straight A student? Before we continue, yeah, of course you are.
I like typical Midwestern do good, perfectionism. All these things that I just am trying to get rid of.
No, I know. Yeah. And that sort of that kind of seed of being really curious and really interested in the world around me, especially artistically, but having that coupled with not being a terribly good doer of homework. It was a little bit, of a recipe for finding, this really individual path, that I had these touchstones for. Certainly, my teachers, my high school choir teacher, just sort of encouraging me to, really, really enjoy, all of this, and certainly my college teachers, who, I think were perfect for me then, because they were not, maybe I was just such a force of, kind of stubbornness or something, but I think it was probably a little bit of them. They were not so prescriptive, that, they said, this is how you have to do this. That, they really allowed me to say, okay, well, so maybe, memorizing all of the Mozart operas is not your thing right now. That's okay. So let's dive deep into art song. Let's find something else in this way. And that was perfect for me, as I kind of tried to fill out these sort of these kinds of cracks in my experience, and trying to kind of brush all of the chips off of my shoulder of my beautifully talented and brilliant and hardworking colleagues such as yourself. And I didn't always grow up around people who were still generous in that way, and that's kind of it has led me to sort of wanting to use whatever force of individuality I can to let everyone know in the audience, in any classroom I'm in front of, in every in absolutely any sphere, that it's all okay. Whatever you're doing is okay, and
Yes.
you are welcome, and you must be here because your story must be told. And
Yeah.
I can tell the story through art, and you can tell your story through listening and conversation, and and any sort of edification of kind of what we all think as we're experiencing art in this way.
I love that, Dashon, and I'm thinking about a couple things I'd love to kind of ask you more about with this. But I was thinking about this last point you made about how everyone here, they're valid and okay, and also, or the work they're doing is all that, but also so are they as people. Like, there's nothing wrong with any of with any of us. We're as we are is great and enough. And I think that sometimes as performers we just get so like in that mindset of pleasing others, and maybe it's just the way that we have been educated, but this idea of like always seeking out approval, or not really being encouraged to trust that we have the answers in us already. And of course there are things we can always learn from others, but just that seed of, no, I know in my gut like this doesn't feel good, or this does feel good, and it might not be to their liking, but I don't really care, I'm enjoying it myself. Just that real
Absolutely,
gut
yeah.
response, which I think is, if as a teacher I can encourage anything in my students, it is to really love that unknown, that both like knowing what you are and who you are and what you want, and also the unknown of if that's gonna please the person listening across in the audition tape, because who really cares.
Absolutely.
But I also wonder, Dashon, you mentioned your high school teacher, choir director, being a big influence. Was there anything before that really kind of sparked your interest in singing that might lead to a profession, or was there
Yeah,
a
no,
person or a
it
moment,
really
or...
it really was for me, moving from New York, where I kind of grew up until then, to Pennsylvania, this small town called Williamsport, which had an amazing music program. And so I'm sure I could have found it in the city, but because it's such an enormous city and most things cost a lot of money and all of that sort of thing, it was much less likely. And when I moved to this small town with the choir right down the hall, it's like, okay, well, my friends were hanging out there, and they said, hey, you should do this too. And I said, I don't know what it is, but sounds fun, and it was just that sort of spark of wanting to kind of hang out, which still continues to this day, honestly.
Totally. They look
for
cool.
me, art
What's
is just
up?
hanging out. Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
And I've been really, really lucky, one, to have a natural kind of ease when it comes to singing, but two, to be able to be matched up with a kind of singing that that I've been able to study and everything like that. I really think that we're all geniuses at something, but sometimes we just don't have the opportunity, the training, whatever it is, to really allow that to blossom. And so I've been so lucky, really, to have been plopped into music and to have found this kind of singing, which really feels good. And, I feel like I've been able to, to enjoy, what I and my colleagues are all doing. And it's wonderful in this way. And it takes a certain amount of trust, I think, too, because what we do is so collaborative, and that's, I think, what I'm missing the most. If I were an instrumentalist at this time, you always want to collaborate with people, but man, what a time to be a pianist. This would be such an amazing time to be a classical guitarist, or something like this, where you've been playing solo music for most of your life, and now you have a lot of time to kind of do it. And yes, they're already doing that, but it's a very, very different thing, I think, to be a singer in this way, and it's a very different thing to be able to trust that it will all be able to come back. And that trust has kind of, for me, blossomed into one of the ways that trust has, kind of opened up is in Queen's Voice Lab, Being a member, of Queen's Voice Lab has allowed me to really not only talk about my experience as an artist before and kind of now and obviously whatever comes next, but more importantly to listen to other people's stories and to find areas in which I commiserate and to find areas to kind of to sort of challenge and be challenged in my own thinking, and it's such a powerful thing. Queen's Voice Lab. What was it like for you to kind of? I know I started a little later. What was it kind of like for you? In terms of the beginning and when Kelvin asked and all of that sort of thing.
I was maybe a year and a half or two ago. Kelvin and I had a conversation about. He's like, I'm thinking about maybe starting something. What do you singers, what do we really need? And I was like, what kind of question is that? I have no idea. What do we need? I was like, time and money? Like, I really don't know. So that kind of like was that for the time being. And then when he approached me more formally about Queen's Voice Lab, back earlier this year, it was like, oh, that's where this was going. And I wasn't really sure if I had a place in it or if I had much to offer, but I just jumped in. The whole experience for me, my whole kind of MO and my hope of what I want to kind of glean from it is just to have this really intentional time with like-minded, in some ways, in other ways very not like-minded, artists who many of are friends of mine from before, a few I had never met before, but to have this opportunity to really be engaged in a deeper way of connecting. It baffles me, and it might again be my own kind of behavioral patterns in rehearsals in the gig world, but you can go on a gig and really never talk to people in a way that's more than just kind of how's it going, or oh, that was a hard rehearsal, or whatever. I know that I value my breaks and my alone time very highly, and so I'm not the person who's like going to dinners and bars after rehearsals. I really just want to go home and process. And so even though I've known a number of people in QVL for a while, I've never really had this kind of deeper way of communicating with them, and I love that we have the time and the space to do this. And like just the opportunity to listen to others, share their experiences. I mean, we all have a lot of diverse experiences that we can bring to the table, and I find myself just constantly saying, no, don't talk, just keep listening, what's happening in that person's life that I really wouldn't have been able to, see or learn about in another way. To have these close conversations is such a gift. And I kind of love how at the beginning and even now, the form of it is still not really set in stone. I think it's great that it's that we are building this as we go along, which is also challenging to someone like myself who kind of maybe likes things a little more boxed in and clear cut.
Come to the dark side.
I know. I'm trying, Dashon.
No, you're doing great, and that's it's such a. I think even for people like me who really just go along with the flow of kind of everything around it. It is sort of a challenge because again you kind of have to. You sort of have to step into this place with trust and with some kind of understanding that whatever is happening is special in some way, if not to you, then to someone else. And this place is really an intensely special thing that I think a lot of singers really do need right now, especially. It always comes back to community. The reason I do this, the reason I started this, the reason I continue this, the reason I want to be, around audience members and everything, it's always about community. And Queen's Voice Lab has been, just the kind of chief example of community in my life in this way now. But for me, I think that is a huge kind of issue. That's sort of the top of the mountain of the artistic experience in this way. Would you say, or perhaps maybe I've stolen the words out of your mouth, but what is kind of at the at the chief what is at the top of the mountain for you in terms of what's going on in the arts and music, especially? Why are you doing this? What are you trying to reach?
It's always been about communication for me, which of course is very tied to community. And I think, yeah, I truly believe that if we as a community are so mindful and brave to really put out authentic works that represent everyone, not just the canon that we've been given and spoon-fed, but that has the real potential to reach people in a way that is so much more effective than flashy headshots or drinking at concerts. I just think there's like such a more mindful and heart-based approach that if we as the performers and administrators and programmers can somehow lead with that, that I don't know, I mean, of course there's always going to be people who just don't get it and who don't want to, but I think it'd be very hard for people who have an interest in music to not respond well to that. And I think sometimes currently it's very clear when the motivation behind an action or a program or a concert just seems very kind of self-fulfilled or surface in a way or gimmicky, and I just have zero interest in that kind of marketing angle or those types of gigs. I really, maybe it's naive, but I really feel that goodness begets goodness, and I wish that we had more of that aspect. And I mean, every concert, it's hard to make every concert be super intense in that way. There's also a lot of space for more just pure entertainment pieces and whatnot, but even those, it comes from a genuine place and not just like how do we fill the seats, what's our budget. I can smell that a mile away, and it's such a turnoff for me. So I always try in my own performing to just open up and connect with people, because I think that is what brings them back. That's what helps them to spread the word about this thing that they saw, and that maybe they'll share with their friends and try to spread that in their own communities. But I really think it just comes down to authenticity, and I feel like that's a real problem that we have in our business at large, among other things.
It's a business. There's
so much to tackle.
Oh, of course, yeah, and that is the problem, with kind of having. I mean, we're not even a very large community in a way, this kind of little corner of classical music, whatever that even means, especially these days. But yeah, it's the more that you open the doors to kind of everyone's experience, the more cooks can be in the kitchen, for all sorts of things, and so you're trying to right this ship, and it can be really, really challenging to kind of find your place in that, to sort of push your own personal kind of worldview, whatever the reason you're doing this for, sometimes you do have to kind of be subsumed by the cause for the greater good or whatever it is, and sometimes you really have to sort of jump off the ship when things are not not representative of what is important to you as a musician. I'm lucky to say that it's only I haven't had to do that a ton, but it's the times that I have been really important to me as a person, to kind of say, look at all of these people, this is why we're doing this,
Yeah.
and it's people. I really miss people.
I know. I just want to hug people.
I can't even imagine. Like, I watch. Well, I'm watching too much TV in general, but
Yeah,
now I see, people, and they're all, in these huge crowds or going to, things and all of this.
I
And,
know.
oh my goodness, it was kind of crazy. I have one crazy funny. No, not crazy funny. Lightning round question for you. Lightning round.
Okay.
We have entered the lightning round.
Are we there?
Well, maybe this is more of a pre closing of the world kind of question. Tell me about Andrew's favorite sort of perfect day. What is your sort of morning to night perfect day? Yeah.
Okay, love this question. It will start with good coffee.
Yes.
I am someone who, if the options are like mediocre to bad beans, I won't partake. It's not worth. I'm sorry, I'm a bit of a snob in that way, but I love. And I don't even need like the fanciest. I just need like good quality. So good coffee. I almost always have like a big breakfast. I love a proper breakfast, like eggs and toast and yada yada. But it's funny. This has been something that I've been missing during the pandemic. Is that my ideal kind of New York day is to just get off on the subway in some area and just stroll for hours, and I kind of dictate, where I go and what I'm doing by like where's the nearest bathroom, like can I go to this place to use their bathroom and like get a coffee and then sit in this park for a while. I love that meandering. And I did it maybe 2 weeks ago. I was so pent up in my apartment. I was like, I have to get out. So I did that, and it was just such a literal breath of fresh air to get out and see the architecture and, the flowers, the different surroundings. I just love. If I'm ever on a tour, I will save myself. I will not socialize. I will just like get my map and I'll go off my own because I love mindlessly exploring, or not, no, mindfully exploring, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely.
those kind of new surroundings that just, I love that.
That's great. Yeah. Oh, that's
gosh. Great. What about you? Like, what's your ideal? Not even a routine. What's a great day for you?
I'm sad to say that we are twins in this way because it's exactly the same for me. Although I wasn't always a fan of coffee. Oddly enough, it came into my life. I think maybe a decade ago or something like that. When I went to grad school, so that sounds about right.
Yeah, same.
But yeah. I love to explore. My teacher in grad school was always really great at kind of wherever we went. He wanted to kind of find the tallest sort of tower to physically climb, or to hike, whatever path could I mean, not like in a mountaineering kind of way, but whatever kind of place that you could climb to the top of, and it was always it's always something that I've remembered to try to do in every town that I go to. But yeah, I definitely miss travel. I think being in kind of new places, there is no one perfect day for me. But I definitely like to kind of explore many different days in many different locations with many close friends that I wouldn't otherwise see likely, and to catch up with family and things like this. So it's always wonderful. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oof. Oh, it'll come back.
Yeah, I know it absolutely will. All right, champ. Any last trivia lightning round questions you feeling especially?
I mean, I had a list, but no, not really. I think that's like a lovely image. It's like, if you don't know where Dashon is, look to the tallest hill. There you'll find him. I love this. I love learning that about you.
Yeah, it's super fun, and I hope that we get to break out our maps and just explore with our coffees after having had a really big breakfast. So
Yeah. Same.
looking forward to it soon.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Dashon.
That's the end of the
Have a
interview.
wonderful day.